Well, when it is not an attack is when, as you grow spiritually, as your consciousness expands, which is really what this is about. It's about taking all the parameters and the limits off of consciousness and going from living from the unconscious to being fully conscious. When you open your mind up and you come to higher and higher states of consciousness, you actually outgrow interpersonal relationships and various very specific personal relationships, just like a child might outgrow some toys. At some development of their, as they're growing up, they may just kind of leave the toy in the yard, or leave the toy in the house on the carpet somewhere without a thought for it. Not like, it's a big milestone or anything. It's more just like, it's just not necessary, I'm done. So I would say that basically, when you talk about family members like this and so on and so forth, that family members, and I could say relationships in this world, the cosmos, the world of time and space, was made by the ego, and we could say that family members, as well as other members of the human race, act out unresolved issues. And it's up to us to go join with the Holy Spirit to have those issues so flushed into awareness, from the unconscious mind into the conscious mind, that we reach a point where we literally transcend them, and we transcend the conflict, the hurt, the grievance. There's a peace that starts to come into our mind, and when we reach that peace, when we experience that peace, then it's almost like there's no need for that particular past thought or past grievance to be acted out anymore. So in the life of Jesus, for example, he seemed to have an earthly family. He had parents, and he had an earthly family, and then he went on his journey to go inside and find the truth, to find that experience, and then in finding that experience, he suddenly was, you could say, everyone was his family, equally. There weren't any special characters that were more so in his world than any others. It was more of that agape, unconditional love. And so, as long as you still notice there's upsets, there's still a charge with different things, then that person that seems to be in your awareness is there with a very holy purpose, which is basically acting out the grievance or the unconscious guilt so that you can be aware of it and let it go. So I know in my life, with my biological father and mother, of course, and my biological sister, there was a lot of things that were projected and acted out over and over and over. And then as I got into my calling, which I could feel was for the whole universe, and I just followed it more and more, I would still notice when I would go back to visit them, whenever I still had anything that was not peaceful, that I still had a sense of gratitude, like, oh, thank you for showing me again what I really need to look at here. But then there came a point where it wasn't like I was going to try to let go of them in my life or cut them out of my life. It was more like you could say the playing field all of a sudden started to even out, and I started to have the same experience with everyone that I met. The same love, the same connectedness, the same deep feeling of joy, but it wasn't, we didn't have a past, even a noticeable past. And that's where the spirituality in A Course in Miracles is leading, to a point where you don't try to remove anybody from your life. It's more like you start to include everyone in the whole universe instead of excluding anyone out. And that's how I felt it. In fact, at one point, a friend of ours made a music video of me and some of my friends, and they used the song "Family of Light," with all of our pictures, kind of a montage of our pictures, because it did feel like a family of light. Like with all the travels and all the gatherings, it was more like everywhere I went, everyone I met was my family. I was successful at including the other 6.5 billion in, and excluding no one. Now, it still may mean that you still may meet somebody. I stop in and visit dear old Mom, but it's not the same kind of feeling. It's a great joyful feeling, but it's not a relationship based on frequency of contact or a lot of the things that we would call essential in this world. It's just a vibrational connection, but it's a universal vibrational connection. So when you start to have those expansive experiences, that's when it may seem to be that certain relationships that were always there for you may seem to drift from awareness, but they really aren't drifting anywhere. It's still the same love.
Thank you.
You're welcome.